This episode of The Unstarving Musician is powered by Bandzoogle, helping musicians around the world create professional artist websites. I somewhat recently moved my own artist website over to Bandzoogle. You can see it at robonzo.com. I'm a longtime WordPress user and website designer, so trying a system like Bandzoogle was kind of a big deal to me, but I know that WordPress ain't that easy to learn, and lots of musicians have no interest in learning how to use WordPress, but will try something purported to be easy to use. Well, it doesn't get much easier than Bandzoogle. I've talked about the numerous features they have at the front end of other episodes, but after talking to Dave Kuhl, VP of Business Development with Bandzoogle, on this podcast in the previous episode, you should check it out, I learned about several other features that are especially interesting right now, such as crowdfunding, subscriptions, donations, and all of that without fees added. They also have tools to help you sell merch, tickets to your shows, build your email list, and more. They have support 7 days a week. So look, go to bandzoogle.com to start a 30-day free trial. You can use the promo code ROBONZO to get 15% off your first year. That's bandzoogle.com, promo code ROBONZO, ROBONZO. Let's do the show. Welcome to another episode. I am your host, Robonzo. On this podcast, I have conversation with indie musicians and music industry pros to discuss the various aspects of the independent music artist journey. The intent is to help independent music artists do more of what we love, which is, of course, make music. If you're a fan of indie music or a particular indie artist, you too may enjoy this podcast. Hey, do you want to help others find this podcast? You can do so by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. It really does help. The Unstarving Musician podcast is made possible through the generosity of listeners like you. One of the easiest ways to offer support is to join the Unstarving Musician community, and you can do so by going to unstarvingmusician.com and join right there on the homepage. As a member, you'll receive from me tips and lessons you can use in your music journey. And this is not just stuff coming from me and my years of experience as a gigging musician, but also from the hundreds of other musicians I've talked to as part of this project and podcast. You'll also get a free copy of the Unstarving Musician's Guide to Getting Paid Gigs ebook, and that is all free just for being part of the community. To learn more about the other ways of offering your support, please visit our sponsor page at unstarvingmusician.com/crowdsponsor. Before moving on to the conversation with my guest for this episode, I'd like to give special mention to another podcast called Break the Business, hosted by Ryan Carella. It features informative discussion of entertainment law for non-lawyers, independent artists, and pop culture. Ryan was kind enough to feature me on his Break the Business podcast in episode 198, and he was kind enough to make a guest appearance on this podcast in episode 129. He and I wanted to bring these interviews to your attention. We think they're valuable, and I really think you will enjoy them. So check out Break the Business, hosted by Ryan Carella. You can find it on Apple Podcasts and just about anywhere else that fine podcasts can be found. My guest is Kelly Atkins. She is based in Marin County, part of the San Francisco Bay Area, or more specifically the North Bay, as they call it there. She is a great story. This is a great story of a working musician mom. She's an insanely diverse vocalist, and we talk about the organic birth of her full-time music career, the many projects that she's involved in, practical advice for piecing together a music career, and owning the value of your work, our work as music artists, performers, etc. We recorded this on Valentine's Day 2020, and I mentioned that because today's March 30th, 2020, and we're in the beginnings of this unusual pandemic that is sweeping the world. And I hope she's doing great, Kelly, that is. Me and Sammy here are doing fine in Panama, in case you're wondering. It's all tranquilo where we live, but weird on the outside, as I've been telling my friends who ask how things are going. Johnny Bergen was here with his partner in crime, Stephanie Tice, here at my home when I recorded this interview with Kelly. And we had just done 3 great shows here. I know everything has come to a grinding halt for the touring machine that Johnny Bergen is, but I know he's also looking forward toward other things that he can and will be doing during this time. Johnny's been featured on 2 episodes of this podcast. I highly recommend you check them out. And so yes, Valentine's Day. Do you remember what you were doing? Perhaps more so than most Valentine's Day, whether you're single or with someone. Just thinking back a few weeks is kind of interesting right now. Hopefully you're not tired of hearing me, hearing this from me, but man, things have changed. We're still safe and healthy where I'm at, and I hope you are too. I just checked in with Kelly, hoping she is all right, and waiting for a message. So Kelly, you will have gotten back to me by then, but I hope you're okay at the time of this recording. I'm thinking about you. Let's get to it. Here's me and Kelly Atkins. Kelly, I really appreciate you spending time with me on a Friday. I know it hasn't been easy, and I don't recall, I know you had to reschedule once, maybe a couple times. Did I actually do that to you once, like no show on a call
you did, scheduled?
Yeah. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
But we finally have it happening, so it's all good.
Yeah, and I think this has been going on for at least 6 months, right?
Yeah. I think maybe even longer. Yeah, it's been a while.
Are you from San Francisco?
And I'm just getting over a cold too, so my throat's a little scratchy. So.
Oh, you sound great. Are you from San Francisco?
I actually grew up in Stockton, but I'm from California, and I've lived in Marin County for about 25 years now. So.
And I keep saying San Francisco, and you just told me before we started the official interview.
That's okay. I mean, it's San Francisco Bay Area, so you can say San Francisco Bay Area. That's totally fine.
Yeah,
most of my singing is done in the East Bay, so, you know.
Yeah, so, yeah. I wondered. I was looking at one of your numerous projects and saw that you did some stuff in Oakland, which immediately made me wonder if you did a lot of work out there. Do you find, being in that area, that you do most of your work in? Is that what you just said, by the way, that you do most of your work in the East Bay?
All of our rehearsals for Kitka are in the East Bay in Berkeley. And then because the nonprofit is located in Oakland, we have a lot of grants that, dictate where we have to do certain projects. So Kitka does work all over, but the company, the nonprofit, is actually based in Oakland, so we're based in the East Bay. Yeah.
Okay, so before we started the interview here, I was asking you if you were full-time in music or part-time, and you had you said yes with a bit of an explanation in that Kitka. I gathered that it was a nonprofit. There was some sort of nonprofit that surrounds it, or it's part of. And you had said among the other music projects you work on, and I know that you do some teaching, vocal coaching, but you said that the nonprofit actually hires you or employs you part-time to do some art-related stuff, web-related projects. So I guess you said something like technically you have a part-time job doing that stuff as well?
Yes. So Kitka's been around for about 40 years, and it's a 501c3 nonprofit. And I am officially the quote-unquote Deputy Director, which is really just basically wearing many, many different hats. And I do the website. I oversee like the media stuff, like videos, and I help to produce CDs, and I help to book, and I sort of like, jack of all trades. Helping our executive director keep Kitka up and running and getting us out into the world.
As I had noticed when I was doing a little bit of homework before a call, and you alluded to as much, that you have a lot of projects going on, and I did not realize Kitka had been around as long as you just said it had. Did you say 40 years?
40 years. Actually, 40. I think almost 40. I think it's 41 now. Yeah, it's been around a long. I've not been in the group. I've been in the group for 10 years.
Okay.
But yeah, it's been going for 40 some odd years. It's amazing. We just celebrated our 40th anniversary the March of last year. We had a big blowout, wonderful bonanza party with a reunion with people over the past 40 years that have sung with Kitka came and sang. I think we had over 50 women on the stage singing with us, and a lot of our mentors from all over the world came, and we did a short documentary about the 40-year anniversary, and it was really thrilling to sort of see the history and all the different generations of women that have sung with the group. It was wonderful.
Wow. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and put this one out to the listeners right now. So is it Kitka.org? is the
Yeah,
website?
so it's spelled Kitka.org. So it looks like Kitka, but we pronounce it Kitka, which is a Macedonian and Bulgarian word that means bouquet.
Oh, nice. And I pronounced it Kitka until I heard you say it for the first time there, and I'm glad we didn't get too far in before I got to hear you pronounce it, so thanks. Yeah, well, I'm going to... Basically, those of you that are listening, this is a very artistic women's vocal ensemble that does work that encompasses traditions and technique from Eastern Europe and Eurasia. You clearly are much more than I can even wrap my head around at the moment. I don't know if it's relevant for my listeners, but maybe it is, and I'm just, if for nothing else, out of what I like to, just out of curiosity, how and why did it become a 501(c)(3)?
I wasn't part of how that came to be, but my understanding is because we do so much education. We do a lot of community outreach. We do a lot of school assemblies, for instance. We have several community choirs that so non-professional singers can come and learn this music. We host master singers from all over the world that come and teach workshops. So there's a lot of education that goes into not just of the singers ourselves, but also of the community and of, like I said, schools and people just that want to learn about this music. So I think that that's probably one of the main reasons. We're actually in the process of developing what we're going to call the Kitka Institute, which is going to be a more official, probably not a brick and mortar place, but probably a series of more official workshops and classes, and a place where people can come and learn this music and really steep in the tradition.
Do you have ethnic ties or otherwise to the traditions of Kitka?
The closest ethnic tie that I have is Hungarian, and we do sing some Hungarian music. But otherwise, it's just a deep love and appreciation of the music. And currently, all of the women in Kitka are Americans, although we have had women from other cultures that have been in the group over the years. And some of us have cultural ties, but most of us, it just comes from like a inexplicable pull of the music that just draws us to it.
Well, for lack of a better word, and this is just my impression from a handful of samplings, it's kind of mystical. The sounds that you produce.
It either like speaks to you or it doesn't. And in our case, like the first time I heard the Bulgarian group Le Mystère de Voix Bulgare, who you might remember was really popular in the late 80s, early 90s. Kate Bush did work with members and Peter Gabriel, and so they were very, they were, I think, on the Johnny Carson show. There was a lot of, they had a lot of popularity in the U.S. and in Europe. The first time I heard them, I sat there just sobbing, and I was completely disturbed by what is this physical reaction that has happened to me right now? It was like this real gut level physiological reaction that I had to the music. So, when it hits you, you sort of, it. You're like, oh, okay, this is opening a portal in my soul, and I have to find out what this is. And that's sort of where it started for me.
Wow. Do you, do those kind of feelings still visit you from time to time based on the work that you're doing or when you're doing the work with Kitka?
Oh, definitely. Singing I've sung for a long time, probably the past 25 years or so, but for the past 10 years working with Kitka is completely blown open my musical brain, and my ear has completely changed in terms of what sounds like, what's harmony now to me is completely different than it used to be.
I bet.
Dissonance is now gorgeous to me. You know what I mean? And just the way I listen to music and what is appealing to me, and how, if I'm writing or if I'm arranging something, I do it really differently now. I think it's just opened up a lot of new doors for me about what's possible, sonically, which is really exciting. It's really exciting to get those, different perspectives, musical perspectives. It's a real honor to have been able to learn this music.
Yeah, it is quite amazing. So those of you that are listening, please go to the show notes for this episode to find the website. But it is Kitka.org, and it is a fascinating story, and the music is really fascinating too. So I think maybe the first thing that caught my eye about your work was 20-minute loop.
Yeah.
And I don't guess I realized that you have done work with 20-minute loop somewhat recently. It looks like the bulk of your career happened in the earlier part of, what do we call it, the 2000s? I don't know. It seemed like from 99 to 2006. But yeah, from 99 to 2006, you were very prolific. But still, looks like there are things going on somewhat recently. Has there been anything super recent? Is there anything in the future for 20-minute loop?
I hope so. We did sort of a reunion album. I think it was either 2017 or 2018. And we pressed it on vinyl and CD, and we did a noise pop show to commemorate the release. And we played with Jonathan Sagel from Camper Van Beethoven at their camp out, the Camper Van Beethoven Cracker Camp Out that same year. And so we did some really fun stuff and sort of we visited some old songs and released a couple new songs, and it was like so exciting to sing with Greg again, because he's my musical soulmate for sure. Greg Giles, who's the other singer of 20-minute loop. And yeah.
No, I'm just going to ask if Songs Praising the Mutant Race, is that the reunion project?
That's
you're
the
referring
one.
to? Okay.
Yeah, that was the most recent one that we did. Yeah, and it was great to sing with him again, and we brought in some other instruments. We had Kevin Steele, who was playing piano and Rhodes with us, and we brought in a trumpet and a violin and an accordion and other singers to do other harmonies. And it was like kind of a way of reimagining some of the songs, and also just sort of thinking about some unreleased songs that we were able to revisit. And yeah, it was wonderful. And we do have actually a couple of songs that we started down the path of developing, and they've been sort of sitting there for the past year or so. And I think we need to get back to that. I really miss singing with Greg. We're still dear friends. I saw him recently, and he lives up in Portland now. And so yeah, it's one of those long distance musical relationships at this point, but I don't intend to let him off the hook for too much longer. I think we have to get back to doing something sometime soon.
Well, that's good to hear. So 20-minute loop is, I guess, fits somewhere in indie pop, somewhere in there. Has that particular project been over in any of its career kind of help with what I call the economic engine, with your career financially, or has it been largely a project of love and those things that come with just enjoying working with people?
I think 20-minute loop was definitely more of a project of love. I mean, we got paid for concerts and things, but for the most part, it basically covered our expenses. Mm-hmm. And we were able to. We were on a small label called Fortune Records, which Jim Greer from the Rondo Brothers was wonderful to have us on that label. And so we didn't have to pay to record, which was really nice. And we, I think we get paid the normal, a few $100s when you play a show, which sort of covered your gas money and maybe a dinner before the show or whatever. But for the most part, no, it didn't pay the bills. But it was worth it, because it was, music that we were doing because we were passionate about it. And as all people know, you don't necessarily ever do music because you want to make a fortune. You do it because you have to do it, because it's what you just have to do it.
Right.
Otherwise you aren't yourself.
Yeah. Right. Well, during the, I don't know if I was anywhere close to accurate in, like, maybe those were the most prolific, that I'm referring to that prolific time period for 20-minute loop. Excuse me. What else were you doing at that time musically, or were you in those earlier years with 20-minute loop? Were you full time back then too in music?
No, I wasn't. I was working at an audio company called Antenna Audio, and doing actually legal work with them, doing contracts and negotiating. And it was an audio company that did, or still does, I don't work there anymore, but they still do audio tours and multimedia tours for museums and historic sites.
Okay.
And so it was an amazing group of people, super creative group of people that actually started out of an experimental theater company called Antenna Theater, which also still exists. So I was doing 20-minute loop and other sort of projects and working there at the same time. So it was a big puzzle. As again, most musicians know, most of the time you have to have a day job and do your music at night and on the weekends, etc.
So when
it's easier to do when I was in my late 20s, early 30s. Much easier to piece it all together when I had more energy. I didn't have kids, etc.
So when was there what was the point in time at which you got to the place where you are now, where you're pretty well immersed in all things music, even with your, as you call it, your part-time day job, which is for Kitka, and maybe and obviously doing some teaching? Was there is there a specific point in time or like some pivotal something that was a transition for you?
There's a lot of things they sort of just came together. Like, for instance, I've been with my husband for about 20 years or so, and having two people sort of helping the economic engine is really helpful. We were, I was fully employed when we first were together. Then we had a child, and we were still both fully employed, and then Antenna Audio actually was purchased by another company, and then there was a bunch of layoffs, and I got laid off. And at that time, just almost exactly when I got laid off, I started singing for Kitka and started working with Kitka. And our son had just been born. So it's one of those life things where things just sort of flow in and out of each other. And then, here we are I have an 11-year-old son who has some special needs. And so I need to, just be working part-time, and it just has worked out. There was not any big, I won a Grammy, and so now it hasn't happened yet. So hopefully someday, you never know. But
right.
At this point, it was just sort of an organic process where I got more and more responsibility with Kitka, started music directing, and started, helping with all the media stuff. And so it's sort of just worked out this way. I don't have any big anecdotes as to how to make it happen. It's just it's worked out. Over time, naturally, things have sort of fallen into place. And I'm doing more session work with different people who have hired me to do harmonies on their recordings, and I'm doing vocal coaching. And it's, like I said, it's a real big puzzle, piecing it all together, scheduling wise. And some months are richer than others. Like, December is our bread and butter month for Kitka. We have all of our winter songs program, tours and things that happen in December, and then other months are lighter, and I have to sort of, book more session gigs if I get them, or more vocal coaching if I can get it during those months. And it's a dance.
Yeah,
it's a continual dance.
Yeah, so it sounds like performing, in particular with Kitka, is on the top of your list of enriching things to do musically. And maybe there's a little bit of demand too, people, there's a group of people there and an audience that wants a piece of you, so you must give. But session work and vocal coaching, are those still things that you have? Do you maintain the same level of enjoyment as always for both of those, or how does it fit in today for you? I guess spiritually, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have to say, session work is wonderful. It's the type of thing when somebody hands you something and says, sometimes they know exactly what they want you to do. They'll be like, I want you to sing here and here and here, and can you sing this? And you just do it, and that's great. And sometimes I've had people, we're talking about Jonathan Sagel from Camper Van Beethoven. He sent me his record a couple years ago and said, hey, do you want to sing backup on this? And I was like, oh my God, I was such a huge Camper Van Beethoven fan, so I was so honored that he would ask me. And we ended up doing this record together, and he's just liked what I was doing, and I loved his stuff, and he was like, just do whatever you want on this record. And he was in Sweden at the time, and I was here, so we're doing it long distance, and I was recording it here in Pro Tools and just sending him files when we were sending things back and forth. And it was so fun because it was just, he gave me these beautiful tracks, and I was able to record just like, I think I was sending him like 15 vocal tracks at a time. It's just like, layering these tunes with just like harmonies and doubles and weird vocal sound effects. And he was very experimental and very interested in sort of, the outer borders of what you can do with a pop song. And we just, it worked, you know what I mean? We just really clicked that way musically. So that's sort of like the other end of the sing this very specific harmony in this very specific part. It's when somebody gives me a track that says, do whatever you want. And it's like, oh, cool, and you can just go to town. So I kind of do, everything in between. Sometimes people ask me to help them arrange a song, and I can think about, how the vocal arrangement is working in a song, and I end up helping with that process too. And it's such an honor, because a lot of times it's music that's, it's not my music, but it's something that I can sort of put my stamp on or help to enrich and color a little bit. And it's so fun. It's really, really fun. It's like having a little paint box that you're allowed to sort of help to finish a painting with your paint box. And it's just lovely.
Yeah. And then how about the vocal coaching work?
Yeah, the vocal coaching has also been wonderful, because I've had all different ages. I've had, 10-year-olds all the way up to 70-year-olds. And again, it just really depends on what it is that people want to do. Sometimes it's somebody who's just starting to sing. And we've had sessions where somebody's realized that, singing is actually a really emotional thing for them, because they weren't, maybe they're, and I'll give you an example. There's one person I was working with whose parents were perfectionists, and so they realized they never sang as a child because they were always sort of shot down as not being good enough. And there was, I've had sessions where people were crying because singing opens up all this emotional, locked up stuff for them. And it becomes almost therapy. It's amazing what singing is, because it's such a physical process, you know what I mean? And so it's really literally coming from inside of you. There's no instrument that's between you and the music. It is you, so singing is a really emotional thing. So sometimes it ends up, starting off almost as therapy, and then we unlock this voice that this person realizes they've always had, and it's lovely. And then sometimes we're just song doctoring. Somebody brings a song and they want to figure out, why is this song not working, and how can we make it work? And maybe it's about the song, or maybe it's about their voice, or maybe it's about their placement, with their voice, or maybe it's about the lyrics, and we talk about that. Or somebody brings, I've had people, groups that have 2 or 3 singers, and they're like, we really want to sing this song. We want to figure out what the harmonies are. And I figure out the harmonies for them, and I teach them how to sing in harmony. And they're like, oh my God, we're singing in 3-part harmony. This is amazing. And it's so fun to watch a group that has never been able to sing in 3-part harmony before, like confidently sing in 3-part harmony for a song. And so the coaching runs the gamut of unlocking somebody's voice and helping them feel comfortable in their own skin, and helping them realize that they can sing, like they have a voice. They can feel confident and alive and actually sing and not feel afraid, to people who are already singing, and how can we take this to the next level? And it's an amazing process. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, they both sound rewarding in their own respects. And are you at a point in your career where you mentioned earlier, like, Kitka has this big season that I suppose culminates in December, and then there are some months where there's not as much going on there, so you plug in more appointments. Are you actually having to go out and hustle business, or is it more about accepting appointments because you got people that kind of want to work with you, but you just have to? They don't get as much of your time during that busy season, for instance, with Kitka.
I'm so sorry. Can you ask that question one more time?
Yeah, it was really just trying to figure out if when you're in need of plugging in work and your go-to is session work and or vocal coaching, are you at a point in your career where you have to kind of go out and hustle some new appointments or clients?
And hustle, yeah.
Yeah, or they just kind of, they're there when you're ready to, when you have time for them?
Most of the time, it's been that people are there. I have a sort of list of clients that I've worked with over the past few years, and sometimes I'm too busy or they're too busy, and then sometimes if I'm more available, I'll say, hey, I'm available, or, would you like to do some work? And then sometimes it's been word of mouth, because it's a pretty tight-knit community here. I'm in Fairfax, which is in Marin County, and my son is, in school, so I know a lot of parents, and they know that I'm a singer and that I teach, so I've had a fair number of parents who've said, hey, my daughter or my son really want to do XYZ, or they're singing in the school play, can you help them? And so I've, that's been just a natural process. But I do have a website, and I have, put out there that, I'm available. And if I'm looking for more work, I sometimes will put the word out or put out an email or something. But I haven't had to super hustle, put up flyers or anything like that. But there's a lot of musicians around here who offer lessons. So it's a tough gig but you can do it if you want to be a full-time coach or a full-time teacher. There is a lot of work here for particularly if you're open to teaching kids and adults. So far it's been a somewhat natural process of getting people. It's kind of word of mouth but it does help to let people know that you're available for sure.
Sure. I did notice you have the fact that you've done and do session work. I didn't notice it. Not that it's not there, but I didn't notice on your website that you had a thing, available for session work. But what I did notice by contrast is that, and it probably just my perception, because you had vocal coaching there, and then I visit that part of your website, and I can see that you have this experience and do these things, and you're open to be contacted about it. So the sort of the passive marketing, so I'm sure that, as you say, has helped to just sort of keep it going along with all the referrals. And it would seem to, I guess I'm not terribly surprised to hear you say it. There's so many musicians there offering instruction. Prior to your saying that, I was thinking, well, it's a great area because there's a lot of money out there, so people will spend it on their kids or themselves.
That's true.
But,
yeah, that's true.
Interesting.
And people are maybe have a bit more, discretionary time where they can actually do things that they've, someone's always wanted to sing, and they're like, I'm going to do it. I'm turning 40. I'm going to take voice lessons, and it's it's great. It's a great thing to do for yourself. Some people don't have the luxury of being able to do that, but around here there is more money, and people are able to have that luxury, which is good for people like me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah. Do you do any teaching online at all?
I haven't. Mm-hmm. I haven't, and I've thought about it because I've seen so many of the online. Both just a video that you watch and it's not an interactive experience, but there's also people who do a lot of, Skype lessons. And I've done vocal Skype lessons with other people for myself, but I have never given a Skype lesson. And that's actually something I should consider, but I haven't.
Yeah.
You're putting a light bulb over my head right now. I need to sort of think about expanding my services.
Well, sure. I would definitely recommend it if it's, something that you have the bandwidth, more students that way. There's a young woman I spoke with. I think that her episode will publish before yours, but you might be interested in looking her up just because she's very much the online instructor. And there are a lot of people out there, so to speak, doing this, but she's someone that I got to speak to recently. She was referred by a Bay Area singer who's moved to Austin named Laura Price. But anyway, her name, the one in question I'm talking about, is Ariane Cap. And for those of you who are also curious, it's Ariane is Ariane and Cap, like baseball cap, CAP. She's a bass player and quite the educator. Her websites and her work, just her own musical work is very interesting. But it was really fun to talk to her about the business of her online stuff that she has for instruction. Anyway, you might find it fascinating too, just a kind of inspirational.
Cool, yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, she's a neat lady. Quite the virtuoso, if I might add too.
Fantastic.
Do we say that? Do we have to feminize that word for women? There's not, right? Everyone, just anyone can be virtuoso. So. I've never heard it. And you know what's funny?
I think anyone can be a virtuoso. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's funny? I don't know if you knew this. I'm living in Latin America, in Central America, in Panama, and so I'm immersed in Spanish, and I'm still.
All the genderization of everything.
Constantly. That was the only reason I think I asked.
Yeah, that's really strange, isn't it? Yeah, that's a good point.
Subconscious.
Yeah. No, I mean, everybody can be an actor. Anyone can be a server. Anybody can. That's right. I sort of like that gender neutralizing of everything right now. I think that's a really good move. But if you're speaking anything that's based on Latin, that is tricky.
Yeah, well, it makes it easier not to have to worry about it. That's for sure. We English, from what others tell me, people who don't have it as a first language, has its own difficult rules as it is. So.
For sure.
Okay, before I forget, what about this project you have called Little Gems? Is that looks like it has done work? You've done work with Little Gems in somewhat recent past, and maybe currently. Can you get me up to speed on that?
This is a new group, actually, Little Gems. With my husband, Matt Palmer, which is something we've been wanting to do for.
Is that him?
Oh, he's an amazing. Just forever. Yeah, he's an amazing classical guitar player, and we have done the odd wedding here and there for a friend. Someone will say, "Oh, will you sing or play flute?" And Matt can play guitar, and we've done that a couple of times, but we've always lamented the fact that I'm off running around the country and the world, singing with Kitka and doing various different projects, and probably the most talented guitarist I know, my husband, is just, working and occasionally playing guitar, but mostly not playing music. And here I have like the most amazing guitarist in my house, and I never play with him. And, but lo and behold, we started playing together, just sort of with some local friends, and did a couple of little benefit concerts and started playing a couple different little festivals. There's this wonderful festival called the Redwood Ramble. I don't know if you know this music festival, but it's a local California music festival. It's sort of like a invite only. We cap it at 1,000 people, and it's sort of super family friendly up in Navarro, like right on the river, and it's just really great. Sort of roots music, sort of Americana roots kind of festival. And so we played that a couple of times with another group that sort of morphed into becoming Little Gems. So I'm playing with singing with these other two ladies, Rebecca Chore and Liz Pisco. And so there's three ladies singing in harmony, and then we have Velvy Appleton, who's also playing guitar, and JT John, who's playing kind of a stripped down drum set. And it's really a lovely group. We're still becoming who we will be, I think, because we've only officially been Little Gems for the past 4 or 5 months, I want to say. It's a brand new group. But we're playing shows, and we're making videos, and we're playing the main stage of the Redwood Ramble again this year. And it's really fun, especially because I'm finally making music with both my husband and with local friends, because I often drive for, at least an hour to get to whatever project I'm doing, whether it's Kitka or 20 Minute Loop or any of the other projects that I've done. I'm also singing with another band called the Bye Bye Blackbirds, and I'm singing with this wonderful singer-songwriter named Scott Jarrett, and there's another local wonderful singer-songwriter. He does a lot of more traditional sort of Celtic, not really Celtic music, but sort of Richard Thompson-ish kind of original work that he bases on traditional poetry by Yeats and different writers named Kitka.and, who's a local guy. So, but most of these projects I have to drive to, and it takes a while, and it's sort of outside of my immediate community. But Little Gems is my immediate community. Everybody lives in Fairfax. My husband is here, and obviously in the house with me, and so it's a new thing for me to be like super, super local. And like for rehearsal, I literally I could walk to rehearsal, it's just like, what? This is crazy.
Nothing better.
Or rehearsals at my house or something. Yeah, it's so great. So it's just making this way more immediately personal, and it's such a joy to play music with your partner. It's a real lovely thing.
Well, you have some nice video selections on the let's see, I guess they have their own website, Little Gems. The way you've got this set up,
littlegemsband.com.
Yeah, for a moment I don't know if I'm still on your site or theirs. I'm like, oh yeah, not on theirs. But anyway, I like it. Some nice performances, I think, which I saw on your website. But you guys sound great.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been really fun.
Yeah, sound great. And you can tell your drummer, I was digging the drums too. It's kind of this great mellow brush kind of vibe that works really well with it.
Yeah, he's great. He's one of those drummers that really listens. And, when you have like 3-part harmony and it's super delicate, it's really nice to have musicians that really are connecting with you and really listening. So he's a real pleasure to play with.
Yeah, and so you just threw out those other projects, so there's clearly more than you can even list on your website, but they're happening so fast you can't get them all on there.
Yeah, and I'm still doing music with Jonathan Sagel and Victor Krumenacher from Camper Van Beethoven, and I have like 8 million different projects happening right now, and it's so fun. And a lot of them are just about to be released or being recorded right now. So Kitka.and CD is being released, I think, in a couple months, and the Bye Bye Blackbirds is being released on May 1st. I think we're having our CD release party on, I think it's May 1st. I'll have to take a look, but it's in May, and it's super fun. It's great because I'm singing in all these different genres with all these different great players, and it's just keeping me spry, which is really fun.
That is great. That you mentioned, being in all these different genres, and clearly, maybe just from the outsider's perspective, Kitka, I guess, could be labeled the most fringe of them, taking you to sort of the outer limits of genres that you might otherwise be exposed to. But how nice it is for you as a performer to be able to do that. Do you find a mix of musicians that among those that you work with in all these different projects, a mix in terms of some of them are a lot like you in terms of all these different types of things they do, and some of them are a little more, they happen to focus on maybe roots or Americana or whatever it is they focus on?
Yeah, I mean, there's for sure. I mean, for the most part, I'd say most of the people that I sing with mostly are focused on the music that they do. But there's a few women in Kitka who have several different projects that are quite diverse. There's a wonderful group called Little Ox, who a woman, Hannah Levy, who sings with Kitka, I think she's 27. She's a little younger, and she's like so prolific already, and has a similar thing where she sings with a lot of different projects that are very, very diverse and like lots of harmonies. I think that's sort of the thread through all the projects that I do. Mm-hmm. It's just that it's a lot about the vocal harmony and what that harmony, like the structure of the harmony, might change based on the music, whether I'm singing in a close second in Bulgarian with Kitka, or I'm singing in like a really palatable third, for Little Gems, let's say. But still the common theme is vocal harmony, so the music might be different, but what I'm doing is I'm bringing a certain talent to each of those groups. And so I guess that's probably true for any of the women in Kitka. They're bringing, this element of vocal harmony, but it's fun to bring that element to different genres. And, but yeah, for the most part, I'd say, the majority of people that I play music with, they are, really focused on one or two genres. It's, I guess, somewhat unusual to be that diverse, but it's fun. I mean, it might make you feel like a little bit schizophrenic sometimes, but it is really fun, and it's definitely grown me as a vocalist. It's definitely helps me, because I think I still bring who I am to each of those projects, and it's fun to be able to bring it to so many different kinds of projects.
Do you ever have other artists or young people, maybe people that you work with, ask you about stitching together a career or going full time? Do you ever have people seeking advice, from you, kind of looking at all the things you're doing?
Well, I guess I'd have like one bit of practical advice and one bit of somewhat cynical advice. And the first, I guess, what should I start with? What should I lead with, the cynical or the practical?
Whatever feels natural, dear.
I guess the practical advice would be don't assume that you, only like or can do one kind of music. I mean, I think that, like, make sure that you're open to either playing or singing on projects that you wouldn't necessarily write yourself, or that you wouldn't necessarily think of as your wheelhouse. Like, step outside your wheelhouse and be willing to sing a jingle for a commercial, for instance. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The most money I ever made was singing a jingle for a commercial, and that was like for a hair product, and who knew that was going to be the most money I ever made making music. But be willing to do those projects where you're like, oh God, really? That's not what I do, but it is what you do. Do it. If you're an instrumentalist or a vocalist, and just expand your horizons and try new things. So I think that's the first bit of practical advice. And then the cynical bit of advice is, be prepared to sometimes be, if you have a partner that is, able to help you during the months that are a little bit drier, then, don't be too proud to let that happen, So that's, but really, there are months where I'm, pretty well helping to pay the bills, and there's other months where, if it wasn't for my husband's day job, I wouldn't be able to pay the bills. So, there's a lot of push and pull with, having a partner and having him be supportive of my career as well. So, it's not all gravy all the time. Some months are great, and some months we gotta look for the stuff under the stones and find those lessons and find those sessions and figure out how to put it all together.
Well, I think that's all good advice, and I'm glad you mentioned your husband and your situation, because early on in our conversation you mentioned him, and I was just reminded that having a partner, a husband, a partner, and sometimes just a super supportive music community. Well, and it's not a sometimes thing. I suppose, like, the husband or wife partner thing is sometimes right. For some people, it's not. Some people are single. But anyway, just exactly, about the value of having that. But whether you do or not, I've spoken. I've seen a clear difference among artists who have immersed themselves in a local music community that's very supportive, and they found people or someone that really believes in them. It makes such a huge, huge difference. It may not always have the impact financially that you want it to, but it makes a gigantic difference in your perception of success and your happiness.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And there's also the idea that what you're doing is valuable. You know what I mean? Like, don't give it away for free. Don't take the it's good exposure deal. You know what I mean? So that's, it's taken me a long time to sort of realize, like, actually, no, I'm not going to just give this away. If this is my own musical project and I believe in it and I'm willing to, finance it myself, it has value. And to remember that, I think is, what's that?
Oh, I lost you for a second, but you came back. But you were talking about the importance of, realizing that what you're doing has value. And
yes. Yeah, what we do has value, and to sort of to own that and to feel to represent yourself as a professional who has worked on this for many, many years, and you bring value to the table, and you're worth it. So and also I have friends who've been doing subscriptions through Patreon and people, and I support a lot of different friends through Patreon, and that's also a wonderful service that, when somebody's trying to make a go of it, that's something that I think is really awesome too. So when I see people doing that, I'm like, yes, that's so cool. It's a great way to get people involved and to, because people will pay, a small monthly fee to hear what you're doing. Like, that you're talking about the community and sort of reaching out to your community to help support what it is that you're doing. And it's wonderful to, even if it's just musicians supporting each other, it's wonderful to see.
Yeah, indeed. I, on Patreon, it is very inspirational to see people doing it. I actually launched a Patreon page with the best of intentions of doing stuff there, and I think I've decided it is just not my jam. I got to stop. I got to get rid of it. And because, I have a community I'm building through an email list and with the podcast. And I think for me, at least for the time being, that's where I should focus. But I think Patreon is really wonderful. I agree with you 100%. And I wish, it was my jam because I get so excited when I hear people doing it. And I have a couple of people that I support on it as well. I want to tell you, share a story with you and the listeners real quick, but we were talking about the whole partner thing. There are two things I wanted to tell you, but all from the same story here. But I have a couple visiting us, my wife and I here, who one of them's a former guest on two-time guest on the podcast. I sort of brought them here. I didn't fund the whole trip, but sort of got them here to have him play some music with me. So the aspiration was to do a house concert, my first house concert, which I did, and it was great. We did a house concert. We did a local kind of bar venue here that's very popular, and then we did this catamaran cruise yesterday. And he has with him his wife / partner / business manager, and they tour nonstop. But I've been watching them working too while they've been here, and what a team they are. But just kind of wanted to mention them, just again, sort of underscoring the importance, if it is something in your life that you have, to make sure you value or honor that good fortune. But the other thing that was funny...
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the other thing that was kind of funny about all this, so here I am, the unstarving musician guy. I got this book about how to get unstarving musician's guide to getting paid gigs, how to get booked and paid what you're worth over and over again. And I certainly had some stories to tell about that I wanted to help other people with. And anyway, this week, as I was doing this, first time I've done it, brought someone down, and I got the first time I'm doing the house concert. I'm sitting there telling one of my local musician friends, look, I kind of overcommitted this whole thing financially to my guest here, so I'm going to pay you out of pocket. And last night I was laughing, going, look at me, the unstarving musician guy, and I'm not even getting paid for this gig. But the fun, the silver lining is that I received payment for one of the gigs today via bank transfer, and I had forgotten. This is so stupid, but I had thought I was getting X amount of money for the whole thing, was basically paying it all out, when in fact I was getting almost double that. And I went back to look at my notes, like, is he mistaken? Do I need to tell him that he doesn't owe me that much? But sure enough, I did all right. So
That's great. That's good. That's a great story.
It was kind of funny. But anyway, I learned a lot of lessons. I was telling my email list yesterday that the house concert was such a fun experience, and it went really well. My host was great. I think I did a fine job of doing my part, but I learned a lot of things from it, and so I was sharing that, and I'm going to share that some more with my community and you if you're interested, if you do many of those kind of things. So. But
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please.
Do you do many house concerts? It seems like you would.
We've Little Gems in particular has been starting. That's like a great, this group is so different from many of the groups I've sung with before in terms of like, either I've been in like a full blown rock band with like a drum set and electric bass and like 2 electric guitars and like, keyboard, the whole full blown deal. Or, Kitka's done some house concerts. We've done like some private events. But for the most part, it's, concert halls and things. The Little Gems is the perfect band for a house concert because it's really intimate and it's more acoustic. And so, yeah, we've been doing house concerts, and I have to say, it's one of my favorite things to do because you really feel like you have really that intimate connection with the audience. It's so wonderful. I did a few house concerts with Jonathan Sagal as well, who's here recently touring with Camper, and then just doing some stuff on his own. And those are also wonderful. Same kind of thing where you're just, people are really there to really listen and connect with you. And yeah, it's the best. It's one of my favorite ways of performing for sure.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I agree with you 100% that Little Gems looks totally geared for doing those kind of gigs. And in my experience this weekend, we did 3 absolutely fun, successful performances, but far and away, I told my friend next time I'm going to focus on house concerts. It was just, I can tell when you do it right that it is, it's the most rewarding for everybody and for the artist in multiple ways. But I mean, even for the fan,
sure.
Even for the fan though, because how often do they get to do something where they are just, where the artist is speaking to them? And hanging out with them.
An anonymous person. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Like you really get to understand especially if it's really a singer-songwriter, you can really understand where the song is coming from, and you get the storytelling, and it's just, it's the best. And as a musician, you can really hear yourself, and you can really, as a singer, that's the thing for me as I've gotten older, especially, it's just like, it's hard for me to be in a super loud, crazy loud club environment at this point, and singing in particular. Seeing a concert is not a big deal, but trying to really harmonize and sing in a really, really loud, electric stage club environment is, for me, I'm so spoiled singing in an a cappella group. You know what I mean? It's like so nice to be able to really hear what you're doing and actually hear it immediately, not going through a microphone, through a wire, to a monitor and back to you. You know what I mean? It's like so nice to be able to hear it resonating in the space. It's just like, there's nothing like that. So house concerts give you that opportunity, and it's just, God, so great. I just love it so much. Yeah,
it's amazing. Well, I hope that you guys do a lot of them this year. And Kelly, I want to thank you again for spending time with me. This has been really great. I'm glad that we stuck with it. Sometimes these things, when the rescheduling happens, especially when part of it's my doing, months can go by, and I really appreciate that you stuck it out. It's been really fun.
Oh, thank you. It's such my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Of course. Hey, thanks again for listening. If you are loving the podcast, please visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn about the various ways that you can offer your support. And again, if you're a listener, I consider you a supporter, especially if you shared it with a friend. Thank you. Look for show notes and links to most everything mentioned in this episode at unstarvingmusician.com/podcast. Thanks so much for listening. With a whole lot of gratitude, peace, love, and more cowbell. Hey there, one last thing before you go. At the time of this recording, music artists and other creators are facing unusual and uncertain times. I'd like to help out if I can. My contribution is to offer you an opportunity to work with me in a coaching capacity and to only pay what you can afford if you can afford to pay anything at all. Think of it as a virtual tip jar. The point is, I'm here for you if you feel you need the help. There's a bit of a process, but it's pretty simple. Just go to unstarvingmusician.com/coaching. There's a button on that page to schedule a 15-minute consult call with me. This is just a call to find out how and if I can help you, and it's also an opportunity for you to find out if you want to work with me and for me to find out if I want to work with you. If we both feel good about it, we'll schedule your sessions, and I'll also answer any questions you have about how it works, including the pay what you want or what you can afford tip jar thing. So go to unstarvingmusician.com/coaching to learn more. I'll have a limited number of slots, obviously, so if this sounds like something you can use right now, go to unstarvingmusician.com/coaching to learn more and or to get started. Ciao.